And I was close, but I found my resolve like Daniel. I will not admit defeat. Fall starts on September 22nd. I don't care how many life-size cardboard cutouts of me in Photoshop t-shirts you come up with, I will not desist. That was well played. Whoever did that, the amount of effort put in, wow. I was just like, wow. I was impressed. I got nothing to compete with that other than the fact that I get to get up here and talk, and you don't, whoever you are. So, man, no. Can you believe 15 years went by? And some of you have been here for all of it. Think about that. I did a little number crunching because I was like, let's say somebody's been here for all the 15 years I've been here, and I kind of worked out the number of lessons and classes and things. I came up with around 1,000 hours of preaching and teaching that you've sat through from me, which would be like, if we did it like this, 40 straight days, nonstop, no breaks. Anybody want to try that out? If you haven't been here for all that, maybe you're new. If you want, 40 days, just me and you preaching and teaching at you, you probably don't want that. God bless you for still being here, by the way. Honestly, you think about that. But it's been a little while. When we came here in 2010, things have changed a lot. Life's changed, hasn't it? The people here have changed. We've got a lot of different faces in over that time. We've lost a lot of important and good people during that time who have went on. And, my family's changed. Jace was 7 months old when we showed up here, and he would have been about 1 foot 3 inches tall. Now he's almost 6 foot 6 inches tall. And Levi and Isaac didn't even exist. They weren't even a twinkle in a twinkle of an eye. They didn't exist. Levi, I'll never forget, was born during VBS. I got in trouble that night because Amy was in the hospital. They put her in the hospital, and I showed up here, and a bunch of the ladies were like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I got to teach my teen class." And they're like, "Get out of here." So I left because my child was being born. But he didn't show up till 9 o'clock the next day, so I didn't miss it or anything. But, that was exciting. Just a lot of good times. But also, I think it makes us ask some questions, doesn't it? It should. And I started thinking, how are we known? What are we known as? From the community, our friends, our family, even amongst ourselves. Like what would our name be in the community? I've heard before, and you have too, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I've heard churches over time, a guy's been there so long, they start calling it that guy's church. You heard that before? And I thought, God forbid this is ever called Joseph's church. That would be awful. How are we known? Are we known as a place that truly desires to glorify and honor God? Are we known as a place that is passionate about wanting to become better followers of Jesus? Are we serious about Jesus? When we come every first day of the week to break bread and drink the cup that Jesus says, this is my body and this is my blood, do we do that with intent and fervor and love and hunger? Are we hungering and thirsting to feed on Jesus? What's our name? What's our name? Who gives it to us? Because the truth is this, Jesus knows, doesn't he? Does Jesus know about his churches? Just a lot of it. Read Revelation 2 and 3 sometime if you haven't, because he writes to 7 different churches in Asia, and it starts off very similar every time. He says, I know you. It actually says, I know your works. But what he means is, I know you. I know if you're hot. I know if you're cold. I know if you're alive. I know if you're dead. I know if you're about me or if you're about yourselves. I know you, says Jesus. I know your name. I know what it is. And man, I know what it should be. The world that we live in, our culture, sometimes even ourselves, we try to rename us. to make ourselves more about what makes sense or what's palatable in the world or what's acceptable or in vogue or going well with others. What are we known as? I was joking the other day, we were in Tuesday Bible study, and sometimes you'll hear me saying a sermon about being weird, like I'm weird and I want to be weird, and because I think the world looks at people who really want to follow Jesus, who say, this is what life's about. It's not about your money or your status or your success or your importance or any of that other trash. It's not about the metrics that society measures by. I don't want to just be known as, well, there's a church with a decent number of people here. That doesn't matter. What matters is, are we weird about Jesus? So much so that people say, why do you live your lives so committed to that guy that died on a cross? Why does he factor into every decision you make and everywhere you go and even the way that you act? Why is that who you are? But that's what I want to be. I want to be weird. And I was joking. I said, I'd like to put on the sign out front, weird people meet here. Wouldn't that go well? Huh? You say, well, that's not biblical. Read 1 Peter 2:9 in the King James. It kind of is. Because as he's talking to the church there, he says, you are to be a peculiar people. You're to be kind of weird. You're to be people that the world looks at and you're so affected by God that they go, man, that's peculiar. That's different. It's not like anybody else. What's our name? Because our names have a lot to do with our identity. Let's talk about names here as we peek into Daniel 1. Did you notice the names? Steve thanked me for that passage, by the way, this morning. He was like, thanks a lot. All those great names. And the thing I'll tell you, Steve, is what I tell everybody. Whenever you read a list of names, read it like you know what you're saying, because everybody else doesn't know either. And they'll go, well, he must be right, you know? That must be how it's said. So let's take a look here in Daniel chapter 1. I just want you to pay attention to the names because the reason the writer focuses on them is it plays such a role in the message he's trying to tell us about who gives us a name, who gets to name us, who do we allow to name us, what name do we embrace. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, that's king number 1, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, there's king number 2, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. And then the king commanded Ashpenaz, there's another good name, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, all in good appearance and skillful in wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace. So he wants them to get the best out of overtaken Israel. Find some of the best, the brightest, the young minds of the future. And then what's he want to do with them? He wants to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. That's the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and the wine that the king drank. And they were to be educated. Or maybe you should say re-educated for 3 years. And at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Now, among these were Daniel. You've heard of Daniel before, yeah? Also, we read about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Have you heard of those 3 guys before? You have, just not by that name. Yeah. These were of the tribe of Judah. So the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore, he asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself. Let me tell you a secret. This is not about food and wine. That's not what it's about. Yeah, that's part of where Daniel decides he's going to draw his distinction and stand out as weird and peculiar. But it's about everything else. It's about the education. It's about the training. It's about, let me teach you to be a Babylonian. Let me give you a new name and a new worldview and a new perspective about what you're living for and who you trust in and what's most important. And Daniel says, no. I resolve myself absolutely not. So the first name we heard was Jehoiakim, king of Judah, son of Josiah, it's an odd name considering the character. These names have meanings. Jehoiakim literally means Yahweh raises up. You know what Yahweh is, who that is, right? That's God. That is the Lord of Israel, the creator God of the world. But Jehoiakim's supposed to mean Yahweh raises up. His life doesn't mean that. He trusted in foreign powers the entire time. As a matter of fact, at one point, he paid tribute to Egypt to give him protection against Babylon. How'd that work out for you? Pretty well? No, he got whipped. Now he's enslaved by Babylon, under their heel and under their yoke. So King Jehoiakim should mean Yahweh raises up, but it doesn't anymore. Then you have another king. By the way, I love how all these supposed kings are thrown at us right up front in Daniel, because the whole book is going to be clear that all these kings and all these supposed kingdoms are unimpressive to the true God. And that goes not just for Israel and Babylon and Egypt. That goes for America and any other kingdom or nation or empire that the world has ever known. That goes as well for you and me, because guess what we try to build in our own lives? Little kingdoms, don't we? You got a little kingdom that you run? Oh, I know you do. I try to have one too. It's my house. Just like, your house, that's your kingdom, right? Do you like your kingdom to go well? Everything to be in order and everybody to be on task. And don't you hate when there's dissension in the kingdom? I had dissension just the other night. I think it was Wednesday night. The peasants were revolting. It was madness in my kingdom. I don't know what happened, but everybody was just in a mood. And the boys were snappy at each other. And here I am. I'm King Joseph, by the way. It's another failed line of kings, if you're wondering. We don't last very long. But here I am going, what is going on? Why are we at each other's throats? Why is everybody grouchy and tired? Why am I grouchy and tired? We got to get this kingdom in order. And God says, that's the problem. You can't be king. You're not very good at it. And so all these kingdoms come out here at the beginning that are unimpressive to God. Nebuchadnezzar, that means something like Nabu. That was one of the Babylonian gods. Nabu, protect the air, or Nabu, protect the boundary. There's debate on how that was translated. Nabu was one of the made-up gods of Babylon. Supposed to be a very wise guy, at least historically speaking. He was into wisdom. So then we encounter another name. You see the name of the eunuch? You remember that fun name? Ashpenaz. This one's great. Best we can figure what this means is horse nose. Horse nose. Just picture that for a minute. Can you imagine mom having a baby, taking a look and going, ooh, horse nose, I guess? I don't know. Like, what a kid, huh? That would be rough. That'd be a rough way to go. Finally, though, we meet the main focus of the chapter and of much of the book. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's their names. But notice what immediately happens. Horsenose meets him, Ashpenaz, and he's like, now you guys are slaves. You're under my king, Nebuchadnezzar, in the land of my God, Nabu and his friend Bel and Aku and all these other Babylonian gods. You're under our power now, and so we're giving you new names. I don't like your names. I don't like where you're from. I don't like what you believe in. I don't like what they represent. We're going to give you a better name. So he takes Daniel, whose name means, Daniel means God is my judge. And he takes Hananiah. His name means the Lord is gracious. And he takes Mishael, whose name means who is what God is. Man, I love that name. That's like, isn't that a great name? Who is what God is? Like, can you imagine that being your name, your identity? You go around proclaiming to the world, who is like God? Nothing, no one, nobody. There's nothing like my God. That was what his name was, Mishael. And Azariah means the Lord is my help. The Lord is my helper. And Horse Nose says, oh, no. That won't do it all. Your God didn't protect you from us. You need to give up on your God and your homeland and your ways. And we'll start with new names as you get a new education and a new way to understand the world. So Daniel, I'm going to call you Belteshazzar. That has to do with the pagan god Bel and means something like Bel protects the king. And then Hananiah will call you Shadrach. By the way, they had a lot of gods in Babylon, which it takes a lot of made-up gods to come anywhere close to being able to touch what the true God does. You got to make up like more than you can keep up with because they're just not capable. So this whole host of fake gods gets thrown in here. Hananiah is going to be Shadrach, and that's tied into the moon god Aku. It may mean something like command of Aku. Meshach is particularly insulting. Remember what I said Mishael means? Who is what God is. Meshach means who is what Aku is. You see what he did there? He said, oh yeah, we won. We won the battle. We're better than you. I know you said who is what God is, but we say who is what Aku is here in Babylon. That's your new way of life and your new way of thinking. And finally, Abednego, it means servant of Nebo. So what now? You're in a new land, you're given new names. The world says, can't you see that your faith in God, what's it done for you? Has it protected you? Has it delivered you? Has it made you strong? Has it made you powerful? Has it made you rich? Has it made you famous? I think these are the questions people ask of us if we get weird for Jesus, don't they? How successful are you? Isn't that all that matters in our world? For a little while, till you die. Of course, what does the profit of man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? What can a man give in exchange for his soul? There's a part of you that's not going to die. You know that, right? There's a part of you that is not going to die. It's actually the biggest part. It's the part that integrates all the other parts. We were talking about this in class today. Your soul integrates your mind, your body, your will, your emotions. All of that is under the headship of your soul. Your soul is what it's all about. It's why we say souls can be lost and souls can be found or saved. Your soul's what matters. And when all else is gone, that's what is left. The world doesn't see it that way. And sometimes we don't see it that way either. How many at one point have said, I'll follow Jesus? And maybe it was very heartfelt, very, very real. But problems and busyness and sin just kind of broke you. Kind of broke you. You know, one time you thought, yeah, this is the way to go. God is the way to go. Who is what God is? But then after some years in the world with it kicking you around, you're going, who's what Aku is, right? Who's what Aku is, or who's what money is, or who's what success is, or whatever God you've put on the throne of your heart. So people give in. And they get a new name. They're not what they were when they were called to be a disciple of Jesus. What about Daniel, though? I love verse 8. But Daniel resolved. What's that mean? It means he drew a line in the sand. Where's your line, by the way? Do you have one? Do you have a line in the sand? Do you look at the world sometimes and say, no, I am not giving you that. Who is what God is? You can't have that. You can't have that part of me. You can't use me in that way. I'm not going to believe your lies or the things that you peddle or the things that you're trying to sell. Do you have a line? Daniel says, you can take me away from home. You can call me by some strange name that I can't even spell. You can force me to sit in classes and try to re-educate me. This is what happens, by the way, a lot of times when our kids go off to college, isn't it? They sit in these classrooms, impressive classrooms, fancier than what they saw in high school, very well-spoken professors who can convince them of just about anything. Who can make them say the world is flat or square or it goes backwards instead of the way we think it goes. And I'm not saying all professors are about that, but there are some that do. So, there's no God. The earth came from millions and billions of years of genetic modification through the process of evolution. No, we can't prove it. No, we've never seen it, but we're confident that's the way that it happened, right? No, we're not. Where's your line? Where'd you draw it at? Daniel says, my faith in God isn't for sale, trade, or barter. God is my judge. And so he did not defile himself with the king's stuff, his food, his wine. He heard the education, but he didn't let it change him. Did any of you have nicknames growing up? Anybody? You're not going to own up to them? A few people are. Yeah, saw a few hands there. Had some nicknames going around. I think everybody, at some point, everybody gets maybe a brief or maybe a temporary nickname. I had a few along the way. I just remember random names. I had a year or two in junior high, Joe Bob. Like, where did that come from? I didn't like Joe Bob. It didn't stay around. A lot of times I was called Joe growing up. To this day, I've got family members that sometimes still call me Joe because they knew me during that time, and it was just, I was Joe. But most of you probably don't know me as Joe, do you? I think most of you probably know me as Joseph, because I made a decision when I got older and I introduced myself to people. I said, my name is Joseph. That's my name. And I've had people ask me, say, was it okay if I call you Joe? And I said, well, I don't really mind that much, but I like to be Joseph. That's my preference. Now, if you call me Joe, I'm not going to get mad at you. But my name is Joseph. It's the name my parents gave me. It's the name on my birth certificate. It's the name I want. We get these nicknames sometimes, don't we? But you know, these names that stick, that are tied to our identity. Because when you hear a name of someone you know, you don't just think of syllables and sounds, do you? You think of the person, right? These names that are tied to our identity, the ones that stick, they're the ones we really embrace. They're the ones that we choose to let define ourselves and our lives. Who gives you a name? Maybe you're letting your past define you. Can't let go of what you've done or what you were. Maybe your peers define you. You want to be what their eyes see you as, right? Don't want to let down your friends. Culture drives a lot of us for the names that we seek. We want to be successful. We want to stand out, or we want to be important. Or are we going to choose to be defined and named by God? Some of you are carrying names you don't like very much, I'll bet. Probably walk in here with them every week. Maybe you got a name like Warrior. You don't know what's wrong with you, but all you do is fret and stew and toss and turn. Anxiety. Every night, every morning, something's not right. And you feel like something's broken with you because Jesus says, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, what you drink, the body, what you're going to wear. And you know that verse, but you can't shake it. So you quit reading that one a long time ago. Or maybe you're sitting here this morning and your name is not put together. Always scrambling, always behind, never quite as polished as everybody else. It's also a name that whispers you don't measure up to the picture-perfect life or family or home, not good enough, even though God's been telling you for years that he values you and he loves you and desires you. Somewhere the name failure, everything you've ever tried in life is blown up in your face, your career, your marriage, your family, and you've let that name mark you and sink into your bones. Even though God tells you, though your sins are like scarlet, I'll make them white as snow. I can wipe it clean. Somewhere the name addict. You can't break free from your habits, your drug, your drink, your pastime. It kind of shadows you all day long, just quietly behind because other people can't see it. And God is pleading that you will let your soul thirst for him. You got to understand, this is Babylon's game, giving out bad names. It's the world's attempt to ruin your soul and who God wants you to be. Daniel and his friends, by the way, they resisted, and they did so successfully. They were able to maintain their unique identity. We'll see that as we press on through different parts of the book and see them standing out and standing up and refusing to bow before that which is not God. You know, there's another guy the world tried to rename. Some people called him crazy. Some people said he's demon-possessed. Some said he's a blasphemer. When they hung him on a cross, they called him a criminal. Forsaken, despised, rejected. In Matthew 27:39, it reads that those who walked by hurled insults at him. Do you think they called him names? I do. A lot of names. But they couldn't really change his name. He didn't embrace any of those. You see, God called him Jesus. And he said it's because he's going to save the people from their sins. God prophesied back in Isaiah that he will be wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. He said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And the world tried to say, oh, his name is worthless, his name is despised, but God said, no, at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Christ is Lord. And some have already done so now. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've bowed at the name of Jesus. Maybe you've submitted to him and said, that's who I want to be tied to. That's what I want to be known as you turned from the world and you were baptized into his body for remission of his sins. Some have already done it. Some did it because he was resurrected. But let me tell you this, everybody else is going to do it when he returns. Every tongue will confess, every knee will bow at that name. That same Jesus wants to give you a name. Revelation 3:12, to the one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it, and I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, and the new Jerusalem which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. Jesus says, I'll give you a name, but you've got to embrace it. You've got to want it. You've got to realize that everything else you could ever be known as or called is going to fall utterly short of the name of the Lord. Names matter, don't they? What we're known as. But you see, you and I do get to choose. I mean, the world can call us what they will, but they can't determine who we are. I'll tell you the name I want. I want the one written down in the Lamb's Book of Life. That's the name I want. I want the name that's going to matter when every other name has faded to the halls of history and mean absolutely nothing. You get that, don't you? All the names that we're working for sometimes, that the world's working for, that goes down in the record books and the history books and the plaques of importance and the names on the buildings. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? What can a man give in exchange for his soul? It's the most valuable part of you. And who you let name it, it's going to determine everything about your eternity. What's your name this morning? What are you known as? Maybe you are not known as a child of God. Could be that you're not known as a follower of Jesus. You need a new name. You need the name that Jesus gives. Maybe you haven't done what you need to begin that. To put on Christ in the waters of baptism. as we embrace the hope that he gives us. We can wash away any other name that we have, but we got to choose it. Here in just a minute, we're going to sing. And it's an opportunity for you to respond if you desire to become a Christian or maybe to make a change in your life. Maybe you need prayer. But trying to echo that it's not the only opportunity. As long as you're still breathing and the world's still here, you have opportunity. And maybe you just need to talk to somebody. Do it. Grab one of us, myself or one of the elders. Our goal here, our desire here is to be known as a place where people learn and submit to Jesus. And if you haven't done it,